Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Dice Tower. I'm Camilla.
I'm Zee Garcia.
And today we're going to be looking at a new standalone version of Forest Shuffle. This is going to be Forest Shuffle Dartmoor. This takes us into the moors, I guess, right? Into the bogs. I guess it introduces bogs and a whole new ecosystem, but very familiar gameplay at the same time.
Right.
I think this is probably best looked at as like a second edition of sorts, bringing in new ecosystems, new animals, that kind of stuff, but a couple little tweaks as well. Let's check out how it plays, and then we'll come back and talk about some of that specifically. Now this overview is going to be pretty brief, just for those who have never played Forest Shuffle, but then we'll go specifically into the differences that Dartmoor brings for those who are more familiar. On your turn, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to draw 2 cards. You can draw from the available cards up here in the forest or the moor, or you can draw from the deck. So you would do that one at a time. Perhaps I would take one from the deck, and then let's say I also want to take this bat here. So you can draw 2 cards, or you can play a card. When you play a card, you're going to see how much it costs, which is going to be in the top left-hand corner up here. In this case, this tree is going to be free to play, 0. But let's say that I wanted to play this mouse over here. It would cost me 1 card. So I would choose one that I know I'm not going to use, or I maybe don't want, and I would play it into the moor up here, and then I could play this mouse down. Now, if I had paid for that card using the color as indicated down here with the binocular icon, then I would get that bonus action as well. All cards are going to have some sort of end game scoring that's going to be noted on the very bottom of the card. If you don't pay with that color, then you don't get the bonus. You still play the card, you just don't get the bonus. You're going to keep doing this and going back and forth until the third Winter is Coming card comes out of the deck, in which case the game ends immediately. And there are 3 of these in the bottom third of the deck. So when the third one comes out, game ends and you go to scoring. You're going to score points for your trees, for all the cards on each of the 4 sides of the trees. And I keep saying trees, but it's moors as well. Trees, grasslands, shrubs, moors, any of that. So you're going to score for everything down in your tableau, and then your cave, for all the cards in your cave as well, are going to score you a point, and highest points will win. So let's talk about the differences between regular Forest Shuffle and what the Dartmoor is going to bring. First of all, like I kept saying, it's going to bring these moors. There's 2 types of moors. There's going to be moors that you can play, which are going to be played just like any other trees. They can only have animals on the top or the bottom as well, though. Animals or plants on the top and bottom, no left or right. And then universal moors over here, which are just any card played face down as a universal moor. These are only played as reaction to some cards. So, for example, this moor frog here, if you play it with blue, then he would allow you to take any card from your hand and play it down as a universal moor. Another new thing here is going to be the cave cards are going to have a little bit of asymmetry on them. So at the beginning of the game, you will put out a number according to the number of players, and then in reverse player order, you will draft them. They still are going to have 1 point per card in your cave at the end of the game, but they're also going to bring some other asymmetric scoring or one-time ability. For example, this cave 5, you draw 3 cards from the stack, keep 1 and put the other cards in the clearing. You do that at the beginning of the game. This one here, cave 4, is just an additional 5 points at the end of the game. So you'll draft these in reverse turn order to give you that little bit of asymmetry. And of course, there's a whole lot of new symbols here with the different pawed animal and dragonflies and mice and insects, and then some different bonuses, which are all outlined on the back of the rulebook. But that's going to do it for Forest Shuffle Dartmoor, the standalone game. Let's go back up top and talk about our thoughts. So like I mentioned there, I think this is best looked at as a second edition, and I think I really get that feeling from the first time you look at the rulebook, because it really is the same rule book, just annotated at 3 different places, new. And that's all you have to read if you know how to play based Forest Shuffle. Is just go through and check out these couple little new things.
Yeah, interesting. I had not looked at the rule book. I, was taught the game. I didn't need to look, but that's a strange. I don't know how I feel about that. About them treating this like a, hey, we're sick of doing expansion, so we just did a new core box. Get off our backs about the perceived lack of balance, which is very much the feel I get from this game right off the bat. It immediately comes across like this is Forest Shuffle for Forest Shuffle freaks.
For the Forest Shuffle gamers. If if you have over 100 plays, here you go.
Yeah.
We fixed everything. This is
Shut
our
up.
new run of it.
That's what that feels like to me.
Yeah.
And immediately I had issues with it being so similar to the first one that it doesn't feel, yes, it's its own game and there's differences there enough, I suppose. I can't imagine owning both. You know what I mean?
I can't imagine owning both, but I do think if I didn't own the base, this is the one I would point people to get.
Okay.
Because I do think that this one has more ways that the cards interact, and so it is going to, out of the gate, feel like it has more rich combos, more ways to build an actual ecosystem. It feels less like you're just playing cards and more that you really are building this ecosystem. In that line of thought is like the birds, for example, who are going to kind of be like the butterflies used to be, where you're doing a set collection of them, right? But I love that not all birds are just set collection. They have their own abilities as well.
Right.
And so it is going to, you're not just going into the birds, you're also, maybe you got a hawk in there, so you need to get in some mice as well to make sure you have the maximum scoring there. So it's really, everything is interacting with everything.
Yeah.
Instead of just being it's one out. You're going for this strategy, cool. Make sure you get the squeakers.
And I do like that feeling of one strategy leads you to another. It makes for an interesting path through the game for you. Like you said, I might start going for collecting birds because I have the one that cares about collecting birds, and then I get this one bird that starts to care about ferns or something, and then I'm like, yeah, I'll lean into that. I'll start getting some ferns. And then one of those says, oh, for, I don't know, insects or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'll lean into some insects to bring the game home here. So it kind of takes you through a path in a fairly organic way. I agree with you. I think I agree with you when it comes to recommending only one of the two, that you should jump on this one. It has the benefit of hindsight, this game. But I do find the game's look and, I guess, setting to be more drab than the original one. I think the animals are more drab. They're a little more boring. And I think the whole, hey, look, a bog. Hey, I don't know. I'm lacking pizzazz to the things included in here. I feel like the first one does have a less drab feel.
I wonder if that is just personal preference, because I love the dragonflies in here, and I love the different grasses that come in that allow that dragon, you have the multiple dragonflies and go up, and I love the different birds of prey that are coming into this. So I actually am finding myself more involved and more interested in the different animals. So I wonder if that is just a personal preference.
Sure, probably,
and interest.
Yeah.
So.
The new things here as compared to the original one, there's things I thought were interesting and certainly added. The bogs, the moors, whatever, certainly is a new idea that I find very clever. You get to put into play new endgame opportunities, new supports for strategies that you can develop, right? Like every time you play a bird, draw a card. Okay.
Yeah.
I will put that in play. I will lean into that. I'm about to start playing a whole bunch of birds. There's the idea of if you have more of the bogs or whatever than anybody else, then this horse over here is worth 15 points.
Yeah.
Okay, I could start working on that. So I like that they have, a little more of that feel than just the trees did.
Right.
The trees had this sort of set collecting thing. These guys care about what you're doing during the game and sometimes that end game scoring.
Right, and I really like the universal bogs as well, because that's a new thing that we're seeing on the cards, that you can't just put down that universal bog.
Right.
You're having to have a card that prompts you to do that. But it's another way to get something out on the board to play off of without having to pay for that card. You're paying for one card and also getting a universal bog out of it.
Yeah.
And so I like that combo as well to kind of build up, again, your ecosystem. Speaking of new things as well is the cave cards with a little bit of asymmetry. I am very meh on that.
Those are lame. Yeah.
If the one that comes out that's 5 endgame points, I'm like, good, done. Boom. I'll take that. It's just 5 points. I don't have to think about it. I do like that all the cards are that. They're either endgame points or beginning of game, do something one time. But it just seems like another step to set it up. You're not getting a larger hand size. Yes, you're getting to kind of pseudo draft your cards a little bit, or maybe start with one extra card, something like that. But it seems so minor that it isn't worth it.
Well, again, I feel like it's absolutely targeted at someone that isn't me, i.e. someone who's played this game 100 times. And maybe to those people, right now, they're throwing their hands up and going, you guys are idiots. Those are incredibly necessary because before you were stuck with the cards you were dealt at the beginning. I need to look at 3 more cards and then discard 3. Oh my gosh, if I couldn't do that, this game is clearly broken. Maybe you're right, because I wouldn't know. They're just not interesting. That's what we're saying. Right. The caves, which is one of the new things, are not interesting. Right. You know, they're kind of lame. It's like, and they sold that as like, you now have a cave with a unique ability. Sure, you do.
Right.
Kinda. That could have been a very simple module to the original game, and no one would have batted an eye.
Right. I mean, to that point, I think more interesting than the caves is the board that has the little marks now. So it counts out 10 cards. I'm much more excited about that than I am drafting a cave. And I think that kind of speaks more to the caves than it does to the board.
Right.
You know, it's like, yes, I love this board right there. So, yeah, I just found it to be kind of forgettable, the caves. And speaking of the ecosystems, another kind of negative of the game for myself, or to myself for this version here, is the scoring. The scoring, I think, has always been a weak part of the game. Sure. Not because it doesn't feel good. It feels good to see that score going up higher and higher, and it's like, ooh, past 100, ooh, past 200, oh my gosh, 250, 260, that feels good. But there's so much math and work that goes into that, and it's like you're counting everything, and your fingers are involved, and your elbow, you know, and everything else. It's just, for this to be, for the weight of the game that you're playing, the scoring is just a bog. And I find that to be even more so in this version of the game than, I don't want to say base Forest Shuffle, original Forest Shuffle. It's even more of a slog. It's a little bit more convoluted. And to the convoluted, another here is I don't think the symbology is as clear as the first one.
Yeah, and they offloaded the card. I don't know if the original one did this because I don't remember, but they offloaded all of the card descriptions to a QR code in the rulebook. You can go see that online, which is great, and it is very detailed for now until that QR code doesn't work or something happens or who knows. I'm not always a big fan of the idea that you might, in effect, break into my house and steal my rulebook at some point without me knowing. I don't love that. If I have a game on the shelf, I know the rule book's in it. I know nobody came in and stole the rule book. If part of that rule book is online and you choose to not pay the $6 you need to this year to keep that one page around, then I'm out that rule book.
Right. I think the counter to that, though, is if it's online, they can update it. They can change the terminology. They can make sure they're explaining it correctly, or if there's a typo, they can clarify it. So I think it also allows for some growth in the game. So, you know, it can go either way. Me, I'm okay with it being online, but I would like a little bit more like an appendix or something in the physical game. And then online as well, if I either prefer that option or need more explanation on a card. Because I did have to use it a couple times and found the rule book to not have everything I needed in order to understand all the cards. Right. And that's even coming off of playing Forest Shuffle a lot and being, you know, pretty familiar with a lot of the way the cards are going to interact and stuff. Anything else that you want to talk about before we jump into final thoughts here?
No, I think I'm ready.
Okay. All right. I'll let you go first.
I think this is very clearly and obviously Forest Shuffle for experts of Forest Shuffle. And it is hard to give it a rating, therefore, because do I rate this game in a bubble or do I rate this game as a follow-up to Forest Shuffle for me? Because that's the only point of view I have. I think in a bubble, this is a very good game. If Forest Shuffle didn't exist, this is a very clever, combo-tastic kind of game with a lot of interesting, intricate parts. I think as a follow-up to Forest Shuffle, there's just not enough there. For me to find this a complete replacement of Forest Shuffle, I'm not getting rid of my Forest Shuffle and getting this. Because what they added was, well, some bogs, cool, and some caves that are pretty lame. And I find this setting and this look to be more drab than the first one. I saw somebody who wrote online 90% forest shuffle, 10% interesting twists. And I disagree with that because I don't think all the twists are interesting. But they're right about the 90%. So it's tricky. I like it. I would certainly recommend it. And if this is the first video you've ever seen on the Dice Tower, you should try this out. I'm going to come in at a 7 on this. This game is good. This game just, in my opinion, if you are a casual forest shuffle player, you super don't need it. So do with that what you will. But I kind of have to fall between those two things. In a bubble and clearly in the world that forest shuffle allowed for this to exist. So I'm going to thread that needle. I'm going to come in at a 7.
I don't know that I could feel
more different
than
okay.
you do. I really like this. I'm coming into 8.5 on this. I do feel like with this version, they kind of wiped the table and said, okay, no more expansions. You know, we got it figured out now. We're going to redo it, and they absolutely nailed that. I think the cards are much more interesting in the way they interact with each other. I'm much more excited on my turn, and that tension of like, oh, do I draw more cards to try to get the color I want to pay? Because the bonuses of paying with the right color, I feel like, are much more interesting. I feel like the animals have more combo-tastic kind of cascading actions. You know, I mean, if you play this hawk out, as long as you have one bat, then you get to go again. Oh man, well then I got to make sure I get a bat out first. I guess I'm going into bats now. And so all of a sudden the birds are caring about the bats and the bats are caring about the land type. And it's much more, again, integrated, I guess, in itself, and much more of an ecosystem. So for me, this is a much better game, and what you said, with that hindsight built into it. Sure. This is the one that I would recommend, but I don't think it completely negates the first one because I do think it steps up that complexity a little bit. And so if I had a non-gamer friend, or if I was going to play with somebody who hadn't played before, I might play the first one. But at the same time, I don't think you need both on yourselves. So that's a hard one to come down to, and I think you're going to have to need to know your own situation to know which one. Me, I have Forest Shuffle with all the expansions. I'm still looking to probably replace that with this because I think it brings it together in a much more manageable package that was meant to work together out of the gate. And I like that. I have one rule book that brings it together in a very interesting way. But if that's not the case and you are still loving Forest Shuffle and have both expansions and that's working for you, this is not an instant replace either. I think everyone's going to have to make that decision for themselves. So for me, it's an 8.5. I think it's an excellent game, and definitely look forward to some more gameplay and really exploring the different bogs of Dartmoor. So that's going to do it here for us. Thanks for joining us, checking out Forest Shuffle Dartmoor. I'm Camilla.
I'm Zee.
And we'll see you next time.
Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, you would love to game with us at one of our conventions. Check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Bassel.